And with only 76 days to go until the presidential election is held in this country, tensions in the Middle East are escalating as Israeli TV news reports that Israel is, quote, closer than ever to a military strike on Tehran's nuclear facilities. Now, this report comes just days after the Iranian president, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, and the supreme leader both called yet again for the destruction of Israel. So without question, this would be an October surprise that would dramatically change the race for the White House and without question impact U.S. national security. Here to break down the very latest on what is a very concerning story out of the Mideast is Fox News contributor Liz Cheney. Liz, good to see you. Welcome back.
Hi, Sean. Good to be back. Thank you.
All right, I want to ask questions through the prism of this comment of then-candidate Obama. Iran, Cuba, Venezuela, these countries are tiny. They're not like the Soviet Union. They're not a threat. Remember this.
I mean, think about it. Iran, Cuba, Venezuela, these countries are tiny compared to the Soviet Union. They don't pose a serious threat to us the way the Soviet Union posed a threat to us, and yet we were willing to talk to the Soviet Union at the time when they were saying we're going to wipe you off the planet. You know, Iran, they spend 1/100th of what we spend on the military. I mean, if Iran ever tried to pose a serious threat to us, they wouldn't stand a chance.
There's our fearless, inexperienced leader. I mean, yeah. it's now we find ourselves, look what he's done to Israel. How dangerous is this? We're on the brink of war in Israel now. They don't really have a choice at this point.
Right. Well, I think that what you just played, that's got to be, you know, one of the more inane sets of comments by a presidential candidate in an awful long time. And there's some competition there for inane comments. But the notion that Iran is tiny and doesn't pose a serious threat to us is just simply flat wrong. You know, I think what you've got going on now is news reports that the Israeli government is, in fact, moving closer to a final decision, that they have begun, according to the AP most recently, preparing the nation for war. I think there's a sense on the part of the Israelis that they can't count on the United States. Jay Carney, the White House spokesman, said recently from the podium at the White House that, you know, don't worry, we'll know when the Iranians get to the point where military action might be necessary. And frankly, I think the Israelis look at that and they say, well, you know, you missed it when the Iraqis were much, much closer than you thought to a nuclear weapon.
All right. Here's a tough question.
You missed the Chinese, you missed the Soviets. So it's a very concerning situation, and I think, in fact, that there's no trust between the Israelis and the U.S. on this.
I've interviewed, the first person to say this publicly was Donald Trump. And he said that if he felt that if Barack Obama's back were against the wall, that he would in fact engage in military action to maintain his position. Now, we've seen a lot happen in the last number of weeks, the sleazy, slimy campaign. He's allowed his campaign to go out there and basically suggest Mitt Romney caused cancer in a woman. They've called him a felon. They have basically said he's doesn't like women and dogs, and that the Republicans want dirty air and water and don't care about kids with autism and Down syndrome. Do you think it's possible? Does Barack Obama and his campaign that's willing to say anything, lie about everybody, would they go as far? Is it possible, inconceivable to think that they would do something militarily if they thought it would benefit them?
You know, I wouldn't want to go that far, Sean. I would like to think that the President of the United States would take military action to prevent the Iranians from having nuclear capability. I do not believe this president will do that. And so I think that what is more likely is a scenario in which, if in fact the Israelis do have to take action, you will see a reminder for the American people about how dangerous this world is that we're living in, and a reminder for the American people, the Iran issue encapsulates nearly everything that's wrong with the Obama foreign policy. The extent to which neither the Iranians nor the Israelis believe we would take military action. This difference in language, the Israelis don't want the Iranians to have nuclear capability. The president says we don't want him to have a nuclear weapon. There's a difference there. And the president, in fact, is putting a red line that the Israelis think is too far. They think they can't live with that. So I think, you know, it's unlikely he'll take action solely for political purposes. I wouldn't want to go that far.
Can the Israelis, in light of the way that they've been treated by President Obama and the call to go back and return to 67 borders, snubbing the prime minister at the White House, I guess it's a two-part question. One, could they count on the United States if, in fact, they need to take some type of action against the Iranians? That's part one.
No, I don't think so, and I think they don't believe they can. I think that, you know, if we had a president in office who understood the importance of a strong America, who understood the importance of a strong military and of our relationship with Israel and our other allies in the region, then in fact we would be in a situation where we could say to the Israelis, you know, we really do have your back, and we'll make sure this doesn't happen. We could be in a position where we'd say to the other leaders in the region who are our allies, the Arab leaders, you know, we understand we can't let this happen.
Let me ask you this. The Prime Minister is a very smart man. His Defense Minister, Ehud Barak, very smart man. They certainly understand, you know, that Barack Obama has not been their biggest ally and supporter. If anything, he's undermined things. We see now President Morsi of Egypt is now meeting with the Iranian leaders. That is not a good situation. Do you think that they understand that it would be better not to engage in something that could impact the election, hoping that the next president, that Mitt Romney would win and be far more sympathetic to the cause of their security and their safety?
You know, for the Israelis, this is life and death. This is an existential threat. You just pointed out earlier in the segment that Ahmadinejad has threatened within the last few days once again to wipe Israel off the map. So I would have to say, while I suspect they're hoping for a president who understands better the relationship between the two nations and how important it is, I don't believe the American election will enter into their calculation, because it's a matter of the survival of the state of Israel. And I believe very strongly that they will act. They will not let the Iranians cross into what for them is a very dangerous zone where they would have the capability very quickly to put together a nuclear weapon.
All right, Liz Cheney, good to see you. Thanks for being with us.